I think this is the stream that we want.
All right,
Boo, boo,
people. Welcome.
boo. Whoa, that is a lot. All right, so this is Nate the lawyer. This is going to be our next little stream to go through here. Oh, GG. These are Nick Rakieta parody songs that I found to fill my stream with. Oh shit. Oh, so yeah. I'm peeking a little bit. So sorry if I've been like peeking in your ear holes. It should be a little bit better now. Anyway, yeah, so this is Nate the lawyer. This is gonna be our next stream. I don't know if we need a chat replay on for this. Can I? How do I? There we go. All right, so we'll close the chat replay out. We will just do this. So Nate the lawyer's kind of on the realistic Rakieta camp, I will say, where he's going over all this stuff. He's talking about all the things that are going on with Rakieta, what this means, what the implications are, and everything else. We are going to go over this long ass document, and I'm going to kind of go over it with them at the same time. But one of Nick's nose guards comes in here eventually onto the stream, and I'll let you know who that is, when, and why. But this comes out after the stream that we just watched. So this is the 29th. So their stream was on the 25th, was it? I gotta go back. 26th. Okay, so the stream that we just watched was from the 26th of May. And the 29th, so that would have been the Wednesday just before the real holiday and everything, right? Boop, boop, boop. Yep. Or the Wednesday right before, like, the next weekend into the 1st of June and all that. I keep saying the holiday. I'm a little off. But, so that's where this comes in. Now we have the full police report. This is really the last bit of, like, Nick Rakieta information until we get to the local stream, which just happened. And when I say just happened, this shit happened yesterday. So we'll get into that last, but we'll get into this right now.
Welcome to another edition of the Rakieta Files. So for those of you who don't know what's been going on, one of our I don't know if we call him law tuber or whatever, has been arrested, and we are trying to figure out the details. So obviously you guys know there's been a split in our little circle.
That was pure whiskey. Wow, that took me by surprise.
We have essentially 2 or 3 people who are saying that this was.
I think I accidentally floated all the whiskey on top of my soda instead of mixing it in. And now I just have a couple shots of whiskey that I'm going to end up doing. Whew. All right, look, I don't care if you think I'm a bitch. But that first one took me by surprise, okay? If you ever drink alcohol by surprise, it'll do that.
It was all essentially a conspiracy because the prosecutor, judges, and police were all conspiring to get Nick. And the rest of us have been looking at it and said, this doesn't look too good because it seems like he had a substance abuse problem. But with that, that being said, we're probably going to be hammering that out for the next couple of weeks. But what we will do today, we got more information. And that information is we have now the details of the arrest. We have the full police report and breakdown. So first we had the probable cause statement for the arrest,
which we went over. That's the affidavit for arrest. We went through all that. He's just going to run down all the documentation. So I'm going to jump forward because, ta-da, we have Kurt. Kurt is also was a really close friend of Nick's. Kurt is a really, really interesting person, in my opinion, in all of this. So a lot of people disregarded or gave Kurt the title of nose guarding for Nick. And I don't know if he necessarily was. So I'm going to say, hear me out on this. Kurt is he is one of a very select group of lawyers that is able to present arguments in front of the Supreme Court of the United States, SCOTUS, right? So to give you an idea, I looked up the statistics on this. So of bar associated lawyers that have taken and passed the bar and are able to practice, right? There's roughly 1.3 plus million lawyers in the United States. It's a lot of lawyers. Of those, only 75,000 are able to argue in front of the Supreme Court of the United States. So he is one of a very, 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 very select few group. And so when I did the numbers, he is actually one of 0.6 lawyers. So not even a full percent, just over a half a percent of lawyers that can actually argue in front of the Supreme Court. So there was a stream that Kurt did that came out, and he was kind of upset in that stream. And he was upset saying that, look, I can't figure a way out for Nick for this. I've thought of everything. I've racked everything in my mind. I'm not able to figure out a way to get Nick off on this. I don't believe that in that statement he was arguing for Nick, okay? I think that in that statement, he is taking the totality of his knowledge, which is he's able to argue things on constitutional law amendments, and he's argued before the Supreme Court, which it's a big deal. I mean, it's a special way of even arguing cases. These cases are just lawyers and a panel of judges, okay? And it basically goes back and forth because at this time, a case has been through the appeals process from their local court, right? From their local court to an appellate court, from the appellate court to the state Supreme Court, from the state Supreme Court to the Supreme Court of the United States. So at least through 5 levels, this thing has been argued and decided upon by judges. And so now it's put before the last panel. And it's very different from anything you ever watched when it comes to how lawyers argue cases with witnesses and everything else. All that's done. All that shit's done. Everything that he does when he deals with that stuff is written, done, and in the past. He can only argue what is already existing on court records, court transcripts, and stuff like that, and case law. So he is really well versed in knowledge of case law and knowledge of ways to find ulterior routes of justice for his clients, okay? So, and that doesn't mean like anything gray area or against the law or anything. He's going to work on his knowledge base of the law, which is far more vast than most lawyers. And he's going to look at all these cases that have gone from everything from just like little court cases in whatever state, whatever township. He can refer to that stuff all the way up to Supreme Court level. So really the totality of all cases, of all law, of all everything. And he said in all of that, I am not able to figure out a way to get Nick off. This guy, I feel like, was a bigger nail in the coffin for Nick than any other person. When this guy sits there and says, I cannot get you off of this, it should have then put the nail in the coffin, so to speak, for Nick, that there's no escaping this. If this guy can't figure it out, you're down to one of 75 or 74,999 other lawyers that you could go to that are probably going to say roughly the same thing if you had to go to a Supreme Court level. So it's just, I want people to understand that. I think that Kurt kind of got caught up in things and was pushed under this. I think he's a really good friend to Nick. I think he wanted to be the one to figure out a way for Nick to not have to deal with these charges. But I think ultimately, when he came down to it and he looked at his legal history, his legal prowess, and his knowledge, he can't. He cannot. So just to give you an idea, and that's not to brush off Nate or anything else. So, but they do some really good explanation of stuff here, and I really want to make sure we get that. So I want to, yeah. All right, so we'll start from here.
To help me go through the document, this is Uncivil Law. He's co-streaming it on his channel. So what's going on, Kurt?
So Kurt's channel name is Uncivil Law. I just want to make sure that I got that. But Kurt and Nate are going to do a very, 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 very fine job of putting things in layman's terms for everybody to understand, like how this stuff works.
Hey everyone, how you doing?
And again, super chat that came in. Thank you.
It's another exciting day.
Yes. And it's interesting to see how all of our opinions have kind of changed over the time. At first, it was like, oh my God, what happened? But now it's starting to become, it's been evolving dramatically. From oh my God, this is happening to oh my God, this is happening. And it's interesting to see how everybody's kind of legal take on it. So I want to just be very clear. The standards, because I think some of our colleagues are getting confused on the standard that we're looking at here. The standard is probable cause. Is it more likely than not, essentially? The standard is not beyond a reasonable doubt. So we're not looking for proof beyond a reasonable doubt that all this. We're looking for, is it more likely than not that this is happening or that we're going to find contraband here? That's what we're looking for. Now, it's a very low standard, but it is.
They do a great job of like even putting this on a number scale. They'll talk about it. So reasonable doubt is like when you're going to a legal case, you want to prove something. You want to prove that somebody committed murder beyond a reasonable doubt, meaning that there's nobody else in somebody's mind that could have done this other than this person, right? So that's beyond a reasonable doubt.
A standard.
So and now they're going to talk about this standard.
And we also have to look at, as the Supreme Court said, the totality of the circumstances. So what does that mean? That means each fact is like a brick and they build a wall. So if you remove one brick from that wall, you still have the wall. But if you remove enough bricks or even some important bricks, then you can make that wall fall. So we're looking at the totality of the circumstances. Do we have, if everything looking together, even if you remove one or two facts, do you still have enough where it would be more likely than not? And in this case, that you would find drugs in Nick's house. Go ahead.
So yeah, so Kurt's going to break this down even better, but yeah. So think of it in that respect. We're looking at each one of these little bits is building up a wall. That wall, we're looking at the whole quality of the wall, right? And you know what? You can pull bricks out of a wall and the wall will still stand. Now, if you pull, like you said, key bricks, if you're able to get rid of key points in this total scope of everything. So you say, like, in Nick's case, what we're going to go through here. In Nick's case, if they prove that, you know, the pastor had come to do these reports falsely, right? That he just had it out for Nick Rakieta and he put these false reports in just to get rid of Nick, right? That would be part of it. And then, what else? I'm trying to think of other things without ruining too much information. Say that the drugs that they found were not quality drugs. Say they were, I don't know, like 50% baking soda or something. Say that the police lied about the amount that they found. Say that the child endangerment stuff was disproven. You know, there's all different things that they can pull away from charges here. You know, the quantity of drugs is something that they're big at looking at right now. They're at 26.7, if I recall correctly, grams of cocaine. Okay. The second degree drug possession that they're on starts at 25 grams. So if they're able to get rid of, say 2 grams roughly through container weight, they're able to drop that drug charge down from second degree drug charge to third degree drug charge. And that changes all of the sentencing guidelines and everything else. So instead of maybe, what is it? I think 25 years, if I recall right, or 20 years, something ridiculous. Say instead of 20 years in prison, say he's looking at maybe 10 years in prison. Well, that's where Kurt's going to say, it becomes a big bargaining point, because when you're saying, well, okay, their standard is 20 years in prison and we want none, the more than likely thing to meet in the middle is going to be 10 years, right? Well, if the standard is 10 years in prison and we still want none, we're more than likely going to meet in 5 years for a middle of the road. Just to give you an example. I'm not using like the guidelines and everything for this law. That's what they're all talking about here. And they're going to talk about that compared to probable cause, reasonable suspicion. You're going to hear that, and they're going to give you like ideas and where this falls.
Uncivil, it sounds like you want to say something.
No, I think that's exactly right. The way I sort of put it on the scale, if we're thinking about on a scale 1 to 10, and conviction, maybe that's 9.5 because it's beyond a reasonable doubt, not beyond all doubt, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's 9.5 to convict. So on this scale, what is probable cause? Well, it's not 50, it's not 5 because that would be preponderance of the evidence.
Mhm.
That's not the right level. So it's something below that. And it's more than reasonably articulable suspicion like you might do for a standard roadside stop. So it's basically some objective indicia that there is a crime or immediate crime.
So they're talking about here, and I'm sorry, I'm nerding out. I love this stuff. I love the way these guys explained it. I think they did such a fantastic job here. So when you get pulled over on the side of the road, right? Cop says, I smell alcohol or I smell weed in the car. That's the reasonable suspicion. That allows them to search the car. Then if they find the drugs, then they're able to charge you with it, right? So he's saying that's like a 1 on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay? And preponderance of evidence. Preponderance of evidence is like, I'm trying to think. So after they did the probable cause for the search warrant, the probable cause is going to fall in between preponderance of evidence and that reasonable suspicion, okay? So the preponderance of evidence is like, say they literally caught a guy with caught a guy, walking out of a building with 2 kilos of cocaine, or 2 kilos wrapped up of white powder in his hands. Well, there's a preponderance of evidence there that it's likely drugs given whatever reasons, and that's what they're going to do is use that, right, to check him out, to confiscate that stuff, test it, whatever. So we're somewhere between that. We're somewhere between I smell weed and I smell alcohol to you walked out of a building with 2 packages of white powder and we've got more than enough reasonable suspicion to check you out. He's wearing a hat because he's weird, Huggy.
And so I sort of put that on the scale basically at 1. On a scale of 1 to 10, we're looking for 1. It's a very, very low standard. It's a very, very low threshold. And as a correlation to that, the kind of evidence that we need doesn't need to have the same level of confidence because we're not trying to reach as high a standard. So as I discussed in previous videos, things like hearsay and even hearsay upon hearsay is acceptable at this stage of proceedings because although the reason it's excluded in the first place is because we don't have enough confidence in it, but we only need that level of confidence because we're at a level where we need that level of confidence. Because we're at the probable cause stage, we don't need that level of confidence, and so less reliable evidence is acceptable. And that's a summary, but yeah, so far that's where we're at.
And just a real quick aside again, so the hearsay upon hearsay that they're talking about, to put that in like a chain of logic for you, would be, say, a student's parents saw Nick Rakieta doing drugs in his car, right? And so they go and they tell the teacher, and the teacher then tells the superintendent, and the superintendent tells the police, okay? Well, hearsay would be the superintendent was told by the teacher. The hearsay upon hearsay is the teacher was told by the parent, the teacher then told the superintendent then told the police. So it's just those degrees of separation from the source information.
And I want to be very clear when we say less reliable evidence, and for a search warrant or for probable cause, hearsay is acceptable. So
Right.
you can have hearsay. Now, obviously, it depends on how many levels of hearsay, but hearsay is acceptable. Anonymous sources are acceptable, but that's only if anonymous sources, for instance, if it has some predictive capability or if it's extremely detailed. Like, hey, there's going to be a guy with 100 pounds of cocaine in a red car, and he's going to be at this particular location. If that's an anonymous source, police can then go and issue a search warrant because of the details are so much there that you can rely to say, hey, there's a red car at the same place at the same time the anonymous source gave. So even anonymous sources could be enough in some cases. And I also want to make it very clear that we don't have to prove that there was actually drugs in the house. We have to prove that there's a high probability, or actually, I want to don't even
a probability,
that it, and that probability has to be it's more likely
sufficiently reliable indicia.
Yes, sufficiently reliable indicia. So that's essentially what we're looking for. So I want to make sure everybody's clear, because a lot of our colleagues are saying it's got to be ultimate proof, and that's just not the case. So when you hear somebody say this is hearsay evidence, right? Yes, it is hearsay evidence, which in American law is okay to get a search warrant. This because again, it's the cop who's actually writing the search warrant. So everything that he's reporting is technically hearsay. I heard it from the pastor. I heard it from all that's hearsay. And then at trial, when you're trying to prove that this actually happened, you have to remove the hearsay by having the pastor on the stand saying,
that's how you eliminate the hearsay. You just put them on the stand. Hearsay is out of court statements. So all you have to do to eliminate the hearsay is make it not out of court. How do you do that? You put them on the stand. You put the pastor on the stand. You put the teacher on the stand. You put the adults who reported on the stand. Now it's no longer hearsay because they're in court saying it. Your hearsay problem has disappeared.
Yes, exactly. So I say that so we can all evaluate this under that standard. Now, some of this information is new. We had to redact a whole bunch of stuff because there's some people out there who are going with this that aren't redacting anything. But obviously we want to be careful. So let's go. So I'm going to pull up the document now.
And they did a great job of redacting it that way. I mean, if you want to look at how I did it, just for comparison, I just straight erased stuff. So I think, to give you an idea, like the people that we're talking about here, like we're talking about the pastor at this church. I've redacted their name. The suspects, Nick Rakieta, Kayla. I even got rid of middle names and stuff. Mentioned people. We have Aaron. We have April. Victim. These are all the Rakieta children. The victims mean they were found on premise. The one mentioned means that they were mentioned in reports that they received, but they were not on premise at the time that they did this stuff. Other mentioned people are the preschool teacher, the sister of Kayla, the nanny, which I just wrote that in there because they just gave their name and I didn't want to do that. And then the investigating officer is a sergeant. I even went as far as to redact their names, even though they are public figures. I wanted to give them at least some privacy. I don't think we need people being ridiculous and going out of their way. But we're going to go through all of this. Some of this stuff is already known, like stuff for the search warrant. And then some of the stuff that we're going to get into later is like here's how many police officers were on scene to deal with the whole thing with Rakieta. So there was a state trooper, there was a deputy, there was 4 detectives, a detective sergeant, a sergeant of police, or 2 sergeant of police, 1 chief deputy. So I mean, he had some fairly high-ranking officials. These are the charges are going to be gone over, the evidence, which the evidence in this situation is a lot better. The digital evidence. This is what Josh over at Kiwi Farms is trying to get. We can count. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 body cameras. There's a PowerPoint clip of Nick's stream, which shows white powdery substance on his nose. Also screenshot from Nick Rakieta podcast, in which shows a white powdery substance on his nose. So they even had a PowerPoint on this fucking guy before they did all this shit. There's a bunch of digital photographs. document. Here's the search warrant receipt, the inventory and return, and then all the details of the police report, which is really going to be the meat and potatoes, what we're going to get into. More digital evidence. So this is where there's a squad car video and everything else because of what happens with Nick. And then, unfortunately, the supplement gets cut off, but it's really just regarding them stopping Nick Rakieta. So, yeah, that's the totality of the document. So that's all of what we're going to go through. Just to give you an idea.
What you're seeing now, this is the police report. Now, so you see a lot of stuff redacted. This is the police report.
Oh, they gave the pastor's full name. Okay, never mind.
What happened, who the parties are, and what's going, and how they built up to both the search warrant and the arrest. So, Kurt, if you could scroll down, because these are just the named parties.
Sure,
Melvin
of course.
Scott's reporting officer, his wife, Aaron, and the school teacher.
Yeah, then we have the name of the teacher, apparently. We have the name of a sister, apparently, who might be potentially a witness. We have another
Well, I guess they give everything
person who's
out.
potentially a
Okay.
witness. So we have some of the names of people potentially that we talked
You can see how much I redacted for my documents, which is substantially more.
to. So we're getting some further information.
Yeah, so these are
about
all
specifics.
the people. Again, because remember, it was like these are all anonymous, but they're not anonymous. These are the actual people who they were talking to. So, yes.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Go ahead.
So I was just going to read this if you like.
Go ahead.
All right. So what it says under details, it says on 5/16/24 at approximately 8:39 hours, I, David Nestor of the Candido County Sheriff's Office, was asked to stop into the office to take a mandatory reporting call from an individual who wished to remain anonymous, but was mandated to report. His anonymity
Right
isn't
here.
going to remain long because his name is Kevin Mellon, who is a pastor from the Evangelical Covenant Church in the city of New London. He is the pastor to a family with 5 children. The family he received information of neglect on is Nicholas Rakieta, his wife, and their children. Their children reside with their mother and father. Somebody advised that the Rakietas had a live-in nanny for approximately 4 to 5 years, and this is new information to me. I was not under the idea. I don't think it was that long, but okay. But they had a live-in nanny.
Okay, and you can see I've also included stuff in here. I'm sorry, I hit space and now I've totally lost. See, like I wrote in pastor, so like who we're talking about here. So these blank spaces aren't just blank spaces. And like here, it was blank space, but it's the pastor with blah 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 church, right? Sorry guys, it looks like the stream keeps like cutting in and out. I apologize. I don't know what's going on lately. I think I'm gonna have to replace my internet card, which is lovely because that's an expense I didn't plan for right now. Anyway, so yeah, if one of you want to donate, it's like $20 for an internet card. Or no, it's actually more than that. It's like 35. Shit. Okay. Anyway, yeah, so I put in like pastor and stuff so that way we know who's being talked about. Like here's pastor again. And the reason why I did this is because some of these other things, like I blanked out the children's names because I'm sorry, you guys don't need to know that. I didn't need to know that. So it's best
nanny.
gone.
Channy Bitson, who recently left Rakieta and began working for another family within the church. This was the first flag for individuals who reported to Mellon, the pastor, that something was wrong with the Rakieta family. Mellon advised the
nanny,
maid or whatever, the nanny, advised the nanny that he did not know this report had been made. A total of 4 anonymous people made contact with Mellon, the pastor, and advised of the following information.
So now,
Nick,
I just want to be very clear. So now you have the pastor saying these 4 people are telling me this information, and now we kind of figure out who these 4 people are. So now the pastor, now somebody will say, well, this is hearsay. Yes, because he's a mandatory reporter. So now he's taking on the information and he's going to give it. And just to be clear, hearsay is acceptable to obtain probable cause for a warrant.
Yes. Okay. Nicholas and Kayla have 2 homes within the property. A family who had been staying in one home renting, Jessica and an unknown husband, were asked to leave recently, and no one is occupying that residence. Nicholas and Kayla have formed a newer relationship with Aaron in April Imholte. I was advised that Aaron Holte and Nicholas Rakieta do some type of blogging and or YouTube radio shows, which is a pretty boomer way of describing it, but we'll let it roll.
Yeah.
Mellon was advised that Imholte moved in with Rakietas as well. That would be that'd be April.
Yeah.
Or maybe both of them, because it's either way. The house is in disarray with clothes and other clutter items everywhere. The children are 2 boys and 3 girls. They have been noted to be wearing the same clothing for 3 to 4 days, with their clothing in disarray and starting to smell. The preschool director at the church that Cecilia attends is Paul Holman. Holman advised Mellon that the younger children have advised her that they are hungry and not being fed, and also made comments about the clothing. So there you go. We got that preschool director, and we know who they are. And now we have that report. So the cop is reporting that the pastor said to him, that the teacher said to him, that the children said to them this things. And you're looking for that sort of reliability of the indicia of reliability, because it's a lot of attenuation. And so by itself, it's fairly weak indicia, but in combination with other things, it's another piece of the puzzle.
Yes. And some people are saying, well, wouldn't this just trigger a wellness check? Well, technically, yes, but it all depends on how broad this is. If the kids are being neglected because the parents are on drugs, then that triggers something else. That may trigger a search warrant. But if you just stop here, that they're not being fed, then
I'm going to keep jumping over to this document, so that way if they say names and stuff, it's not like I've got them on my stream, even though I've got it kind of right now, but we'll just keep playing.
May have just a wellness check. So, and I think when you go up a little bit, remember the pastor's the one who's reporting the condition of the house too. Because a lot of people were saying, well, in the arrest report, they said the house was in disarray. Why did they put that in there? Well, that was confirming the fact that the pastor had told the police that, hey, people are saying their house is in disarray also.
Yeah. And also it's worth noting, just to emphasize the point, that
because it's a little easier for me to pause here. If I need to bring it back on screen, I'll bring it back on screen, but I'll keep it off screen so that way I can keep it paused. But what they're talking about right now is this section right here, that the pastor advised that the nanny does not know that this report has been made. A total of 4 anonymous people made contact with the pastor and advised of the following: that they have 2 homes on the property. A family had been renting one of the homes, but were asked to leave recently, and nobody is occupying that residence now. Speculation right now is that Nick may be occupying that residence away from Kayla. Anyway, Nicholas and Kayla have formed a newer relationship with Aaron and April. I was advised that Aaron and Nick do some type of YouTube radio show. The pastor advised that that the Imoltes moved in with the Rakieta. I think they're referring specifically to April in this situation, because Aaron did not leave his home. He owns a home and he is still residing there. And that this is the big key thing. The house is in disarray, with clothes and other items everywhere. And then, yeah, we're kind of back on track here.
You obviously can attack any individual piece of evidence, like we just did kind of just now when I'm saying, oh, look at this. It's multiple levels of hearsay. And obviously that evidence is obviously weaker than less levels of hearsay. More levels of hearsay is inherently weaker than less levels of hearsay. So you can attack it, but when you're looking at probable cause, you're looking to the amalgamated form, and you're looking to what the combination of evidence teaches you. And so the issue isn't whether or not you can attack any one piece of evidence, because you probably can. The issue is whether or not there's enough in its combined form that would lead a reasonable judge to conclude there's probable cause, which, as I remind you, is a low standard.
So what all of that means in layman's terms is basically, so going back up here, where's the statement? Right here. The children are 2 boys and 3 girls. And it gave all their names right here. I'm not going to get into it. They have been noted to have been wearing the same clothing for 3 to 4 days, and their clothing in disarray and starting to smell. Specifically right here, this next point. The preschool director at the church that blank, one of the kids, attends, is, and it gives their name, advised the pastor. So this is hearsay. This is a hearsay statement right here in getting to stuff. All right. So this preschool director told the pastor that the younger children have advised her that they are hungry and not being fed, and have also made comment about the clothing, or that they also made comment about the clothing. So if this goes to a case in a court in front of a judge, which it likely will, the way you get rid of this being a hearsay statement is they will bring this person, the preschool director, in and have them give a sworn statement or sworn testimony during the case as to what they were told directly by these Rakieta children.
And one last thing too, if these were anonymous reports, in other words, if these were just random people saying it who you didn't know who they were,
right,
then then essentially this is nothing. But we do know who these people are. So what happens is if you're going to trial, now you can say, I need the pastor to be quoted, but the pastor's here. Say, all right, so I need the teacher to come on. I have the kids. I have these other people, the nanny who was working with them before. I can have her come up, and now we don't have the hearsay problem. So that's why hearsay is good enough to get to the trial. But then at trial, you have to show your hand, and you can't have any more hearsay. So all these people would be called as witnesses to testify to what they said.
Absolutely true. All right. All information is regarding the church to which the Rakieta family has now gone to Christian, as their response is not available.
Okay, we skipped a statement here, and this is a pretty big one. One anonymous party advised that they do not believe that the children, the oldest ones, or the youngest ones, are being homeschooled, while the older boys do attend such and such school, right? So they're saying that the youngest kids, and this was a big thing in my argument against all this shit, is that the older kids are going to an actual school, okay? The youngest ones are being homeschooled through kind of a group education type system. It's not really a school per se, but all the kids are gathered together and they'll go through the church, and they're being given schooling through the church through a certified instructor, right? So now we're on to this statement.
An anonymous person advised Mellon, the pastor, that they observed Nick being lethargic and appeared to be high or drugged driving a car around. So we don't know who that person is because they're anonymous, but maybe we'll be able to figure out at a later point, because we're going to need to figure out who that person is if we're going to be able to offer that.
These anonymous statements, because they're anonymous, they have nobody to call and put on the stand. So they could find out who this anonymous person is eventually. Being that they advise the pastor, they could contact the pastor and be like, okay, well, look, we need to know who these people are so we can go talk to them to see if we can get them on the stand as to what they saw when this goes to court. If not, these statements will evaporate. They'll end right here. All these things that say anonymous and anonymous and anonymous, all of this section right here, all these statements, if they're not able to get the person or people behind them to come to a court case, these go away. They're only good enough for them to get the search warrant. They're not going to be good enough to go to court, which is what these guys just said.
That testimony at trial, because that would be hearsay. Who is this guy? So good for a search warrant, not so good for trial.
Yes.
Another anonymous person advised that Nicholas will walk out randomly during sermons. Same problem. Who is this person?
Now, I'm kind of interested with this because there was video evidence of Nick acting erratically during service. I don't know how much sound there is with that. So I don't know if you're able to hear much, or if somebody's able to enhance audio to get much. I don't know if there'd be even a point to do that. But, they might be able to bring video evidence in place of this anonymous person, showing Nick be acting erratic and leaving multiple times during a sermon. Oh, crap. Oh, I clicked off of it. Nope, I think we were roughly in the right area. So, walk out of sermon. Okay, so now we're right up at the top of the page.
Anonymous individuals have advised Mellon that they either noticed behavior in both Nicholas and Kayla, with Kayla almost appearing to be anorexic, and Nicholas to have lost a substantial amount of weight recently, which given the photos we've seen, seems to be objectively correct. Anonymous individuals have advised that they've seen what have been described as injection or track marks on Nicholas' arms. Unclear how much that's true, though, because there was no needles found or other evidence of injectives found in the search that I saw. So unclear the degree to which that's true. Let's see.
I'm just gonna try and get so that we're roughly like right up towards the top of the page.
Where was I?
Possibility of assisting.
Okay. Anonymous individuals have advised Mel and the pastor they believe the Imholtes are possibly assisting with some type of drug use with Nicholas and Kayla Rakieta. Nicholas blogging and views and or subscribers are down, possibly resulting in financial issues. An anonymous person also advised Mel and the pastor that at one point Nicholas and Kayla Rakieta left with the Imholtes to go to a casino, leaving the child alone, putting the oldest son, who was born in 2007, in charge. Mel was unsure if that was suitable or not. I'm not sure whether that's suitable or not under the relevant state law either, so I will not opine.
Okay, so this is a statement that a lot of people have really taken a lot of objection to, and that's the fact that, okay, they went out one time for the casino, or to go to the casino, and they left the oldest in charge. Okay, cool. Yeah, you know what? Under most state laws, you probably can do that and consider him a babysitter, given however long they're gone and all that. That is not mine and most people's problem with this, especially given that, look, it's an anonymous statement. This could totally just disappear. Like, this person, they might not be able to contact the pastor and find out who made this statement. And so they might not be able to bring this statement into court, right? So there's that. Even if they did, I think this is a nothing statement. But you know what? It might be some weird state law that says that, you know, this a babysitter has to be of a certain age in order for them to be left in the care of children. How many kids they can be in charge of is another thing that could come into play here. So those are just things to point out here as to why this statement is important or may not be important.
All right. Well, let me pause it right here. Somebody asked what's going on. So what we have now, you're hearing a lot of anonymous reports and how we got, police had, if Minnesota does say pastors don't, it's wrong thing here.
They're reading donations.
Scenarios. It's like, there's, if somebody else is correct information, because a lot is going
to say, thank you both for covering this in an unbiased and honest way. This is why I respect and watch you both. Can't be easy seeing your friend in this situation and take care of yourself. Yeah, it's been a little bit difficult. And Chicken Shite became an uncivilian by hitting that beautiful, beautiful join button. I appreciate you, Chicken. Thank you for joining.
And thank you, Ari. Thank you for joining too. Let's do it.
All right. Let's see. Okay. Mellon advised that nobody told him anything other than possible neglect and or drug use. There are 0 reports of any physical or sexual abuse, and the kids were not in immediate danger at the time of the report. So that's an important detail, because that also goes a long way to why the police potentially took the time they did in investigating, because although there might have been concern, there was not an imminent concern, and that obviously is different.
Yeah.
Sorry, I paused that because I didn't want them to talk anymore, but I had to take a drink really quick. So what they're talking about right here is the fact that, look, you know what? None of the kids were going to be beat to death. They're not getting sexually abused by somebody in the household. So there's no risk to further the damage. That's not to say the stuff that's not going on is not like awful, but it's not something that's life threatening. That's the biggest thing to take away from that statement.
$10 from Snazzy Trinket Jewelry says Aaron M. Holt. The end of that report.
So now so what that was, what we just heard was what the police heard, what the police saw, what the police initial report was. Now, if you pair that with the search warrant stuff, then you see from that what they heard from the pastor and all those people who are talking about the condition of the home. They then took that and investigated further, and that's what led us to the affidavit for the search warrant.
So that all that stuff was what they were given beforehand. Is basically what they're saying here.
Then went into we're looking at his streams. We're talking.
So that's the pregame. That's the pregame show. Now we're gonna get the postgame show, which is what's on the page. What we're on to right now.
To other people, we're looking for the conditions of drug use, and all that was in a search warrant. So this came first. than the search warrant. Does that make sense on Uncivil?
Absolutely does. 10 gift memberships from Tony P. By becoming a devil's shitted.
The Miranda says, all
All
right,
right, so then we have a list of all these defendants, and then we have a list of all the investigating officers, which is a fairly long list.
Because now, but these are all the assisting officers for the search warrant. So now we're going to see what happened during the search, what led up to the search warrant, because a lot of times you're going to hear a lot of people saying, well, we saw all this, the evidence that they collected, but you're going to hear a lot of people say, oh, they just went and broke down the door. Well, it doesn't seem like that's the case. So let's go to the details of the search.
And now we have news about digital evidence, which we could have suspected, but now we know. We have digital photographs and audio recording, which might reflect statements that Nick gave both at the scene and potentially at the jail, because we know he waived his Miranda right twice, according to them. We have many exciting...
Which, if you've listened to any lawyer ever, never do that. Even if you're a lawyer, don't fucking do that. Have representation. Aside, okay? Just a brief aside. Realize that my wife watches interrogations and stuff all the time. We'll have like even discussions and stuff about this stuff. Like, these people are trained in different tactics in order to extract information from you. Whether you're knowingly doing it or unknowingly doing it, in most cases, people are doing it in an effort to make themselves not look guilty, because they think the minute you go into any police station or something and you're being charged for stuff and you're like, I want a lawyer, you're going to look guilty. Don't give a shit what you look like to these cops. They are trained in this, regardless of my opinions, and that they maybe should be trained better in the law. That's a strong opinion that I hold, by the way. Because you know what? I'm going to go off on it. It's my fucking stream. I could say this shit. Fuck it. Okay. My opinion here is that there's a stark difference between an arresting officer, a cop that's going to stop you on the street, and their knowledge and their wherewithal of the law. I mean, they even have a laptop available to them. And if you look at a lot of police footage when they're doing stuff, they're looking up statutes, they're looking up, laws and stuff that they're going to charge you with, right? To make sure that you fit all the criteria. I mean, this is something that we went over in the previous stream where I showed you, how to look up a law based on like the charges and stuff that we saw, where you're going to go to, okay, we need to look up Minnesota 152.022, go to section A, subsection 1, and then look at what that says, okay? Each one of these things has a meaning, okay? And that's what they're getting charged with. But there's a very stark difference between a cop who's stopping you, who I feel like is the least educated, in my opinion, of the people in this chain, that is now going to charge you with something potentially life-altering, all the way up and through a judge. Now, a lawyer, you're going through 7 years of schooling. Most police, I shouldn't say most police, as far as my knowledge goes, it depends. It could be 6 weeks of training. It could be several months of training. Some cases are requiring degrees now and everything else in order to get stuff. In order to even get a job, they've got to have a criminal justice degree. Great stuff. I think that they should at least have a criminal justice degree, a bachelor's preferably. Typically, in order to go further, like once you become a police officer, in order to become like a detective and all that, there's experience and degree work that you have to do. There's going to be certifications. There's going to be knowledge gained. But I believe that these people that interact most directly with the public should be some of the more higher knowledge people. Not necessarily a lawyer, but I think they should have a strong knowledge of the law and having like a bachelor's degree, so to speak, to where that, it's not just someone who's going off something in a computer that they're interpreting and everything else. It's they understand all of the things that are going to be necessary. So that way, when we get these things and we get these charges and all that stuff, it would actually benefit them. I mean, it would strengthen it. So like, if you're given a citation for something, it's probably going to strengthen it more if the police officer understands the law better when he's citing you, because he's not going to miscite you. It's not going to be something that's going to get dismissed. Small rant, small aside. Oh God, I lost my stream. Hold on.
body
There we
cam
go.
footages. Unclear when we're going to get those. Some people are saying 10 business days. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure whether or not that's true or not, but we'll see.
And I don't think they get into, I just want to preview. So we are at 20 minutes in. Boom. I'm just going to go backwards really quick because I want to see if they read something in particular. Okay. So they do not go through this, but I would like to go through this. This is in an attachment or an addendum on the search warrant. This is all the stuff that they found in the house. Oh my God, I keep misclicking. All right. Okay. Following items were located in the master bedroom near the nightstand. A yellow snort tube positive for cocaine, a black vial with white substance inside that also tested positive for cocaine. The approximate weight was 2.2 grams. There was 2 credit cards listed to April Imulte. There is, and this is from my understanding, this is incorrectly noted in the original handwritten version of this, and I believe this is supposed to be a 223, but they say here a 22 caliber, which remember I went over this on stream. A 22 caliber shell casing is found on the floor next to the nightstand. I believe it's supposed to be a 223 that would fit with the next thing that you see here, which is a 6 hour AR. Let's see, with several magazines, loose ammunition, and then they gave the serial number. I blanked that all out because I don't need you guys getting that information. They located in the master bedroom dresser a glass container with metal filter and grinder, and glass container positive for cocaine. What I believe they were doing here is it's kind of hard to explain, but say if you took a pill of Tylenol and you broke it up, right? You're going to eventually get smaller and smaller and smaller pieces. Well, the thing that works with ingesting cocaine and stuff like that, the finer you can grind that that substance into a powder, the better absorption you're going to get and more bang for your buck, so to speak. Okay, so if you're inhaling even small little rocks of cocaine, it's not going to break down in your sinuses and stuff like that. It just won't. So you're going to get a better high, a better quality experience from the drug if you're able to grind it finer, which is why they were doing this. Following were located in the safe, and this is one of the safes. In the safe in the master bathroom. In the safe in the master bathroom, we had a bag filled with cards and a dollar bill. Dollar bill is something commonly used in place of a snort tube. Typically hundreds are used for the fallacy of that hundreds are touched less in circulation, so there's less oils on it, so it's going to absorb less cocaine. It's a fallacy. There's a large cut corner baggie with white powder. This means, and I had to watch a stream where it was explained to me, so if you took like a Ziploc bag and turned it on its side so that say all the flour or sugar in it went to a corner and then you tied it off, that's a corner cut baggie. Okay, that's all it is. So then it looks like a little like pipette bag for frosting almost. That's kind of what they're talking about here. So there's a large corner cut baggie with white powder tested positive for cocaine. This was the largest amount at 18.96 grams. This combined with the 2.2 grams gives you roughly 21 grams, right? So then the next thing is there's 3 small baggies tested positive for cocaine, weighed approximately 5.49 grams, and these are all with packaging. That's a key thing here. This is where they were talking about. Let's see, black container and placed in a separate baggie. So they put the cocaine in here into a baggie and weighed it, and it weighed 2.2 grams. Now they could have zeroed the scale out or teared the scale out for that baggie and then weighed it with the cocaine, and so it might be a solid 2.2 grams, or it might be 2.2 grams with the baggie, in which case it might actually be 2 grams. And then same here, you might get with this large baggie, it might actually be like a full gram for this. So then you're talking about 17.5. Let's say 17.5 plus 2 would be 19. And then plus this would actually put you just under that second degree felony. And this is even with packaging. So say, again, all 3 baggies, say they weighed almost, say they weighed a gram, just to save. So you're talking about 23 grams or 24 grams of cocaine versus 27 almost grams of cocaine. This is what does them in, though. The next thing, green colored tablets tested positive for ketamine. There was 8 tablets in total. There's a digital scale tested positive for cocaine. And what I think they were using this stuff for is they were taking small baggies. They were taking their large baggie here, breaking it up into smaller baggies or into the bullet, which is up here, and making it so that they had kind of road doses or something, or maybe even weighing out their doses specifically. Some people are really, really like minutia like that, because they're trying to just incrementally do things. They're not trying to guess it. They're not trying to eyeball it like a certain college kid would. They had a metal pan filled with white powder on it, tested positive for cocaine. That pan would just go with the scale. So they're basically saying the scale body itself had cocaine residue on it, and the pan that would have sat on top of the scale also has cocaine residue on it. There's 2 additional snort tubes and 2 metal cutters. The tubes tested positive for cocaine. Here's a $100 bill with white powder residue, tested positive for cocaine. A bindle white bag with white powder substance, tested positive for cocaine. Cocaine scooper, again, for measuring the doses and stuff like that. 2 baggies with a baggie with a funnel. So this is, again, plays into my theory. They were weighing out and measuring like road doses and individual doses and stuff like that. Out in the garage is where they located the 1911 handgun, a Sig Sauer 380, a 45 caliber magazines, which would go with the 1911, and 2 magazines for the 380, all filled with ammunition. Following were located within the garage, ammunition for the 45, and this is where it feeds in, okay, so it's not just speculation, and 223 ammo. Remember when I said a lot of people are saying this was a typo? This is why it would be a typo. That gun is a 22, or this weapon, I guess specifically if I'm going to use correct terminology, this weapon is a 223 caliber. So it makes sense that this is a 223 caliber spent shell, because then they find 223 ammo out in the garage. There's also a Remington 870 12 gauge shotgun. And then located in the master closet, they found a 45 caliber bullet. It doesn't mean much, but then here's the total weight of cocaine found. So that really gets us everything. And then I'm going to back this up slightly. Boop, boop, boop. I want to make sure that I get you guys everything. Oh, man. Okay, let's go from right here.
They can't release the body cam with the kid's face on it, and people who are not, so they got to redact it. So they're sending it out to get redacted, and those people are charging $60 an hour. So they have all that body cam footage from all those officers. So they're saying it's going to cost about $3,000 for it to be redacted, so they can listen. So now people are fundraising to get that body cam footage, but that's
I have very little doubt that all this body cam footage will come out.
Yeah.
And I'll probably post it all. I'll probably post it all myself without comment as well, and then maybe comment on it later. But I'll probably post it without comment as well.
Yeah.
Just a kidder for $4.99 says Nick and his family have a.
So the guns and drugs isn't necessarily intent to sell. It's what really does them in is the auxiliary devices that they found. So the extra baggies laying around, the digital scale, the funnel, the scooper, all of that probably gives more intent to sell than necessarily just having the guns, especially considering that we're talking about rural North Plains states. I mean, hell, even I have weapons in the house, okay? Like, and not to say that I'm doing any drugs. But, I think that's also partially taken into account, and that's even feeding into Minnesota. When they went through his bail statement, they said that it was an either or statement because they cannot infringe upon his Second Amendment and take away his weapons because, for whatever reason, even given in the time and place that we are, it is considered infringing upon your ability to protect your homestead and protect yourself, as well as possibly provide food, that they cannot infringe upon your Second Amendment. And so that's why they couldn't take the weapons away. So it's a little shady. It's a little different. It's weird from state to state. So it could be wherever you're at, the guns and drugs could be intent to sell too. I've lived in more metropolitan areas that, that is the case. When you get more rural and more like Central America, and not Central America like Pablo Escobar, Central America like farmers and fields. Nick Rakieta is a hell of a truck. Oh yeah. Hey, look, I speak from experience, but it's not current experience. Okay, it's all past experience that I can tell you this shit on.
Rough road to recovery. I wish them the best, but he needs to take the first steps. Potentially criminal. How about Halashan? What's going on in here? Good Lord. And for $5 says it's as they say, and the hard way is what they went with. Activate. We have some more exciting details.
Yes, I just want to also point out to people that have been messaging me. Yes, one of the people who are named in this is, I think, Nick's wife's sister is named as one of the people who are reporting some stuff. So
it's Kayla's sister. Well, yeah, I guess Nick's wife's sister. Yeah, sorry. So Nick's sister-in-law, Kayla's sister.
That's up a little farther, but it's all part of the package. Go ahead.
Right. Okay, Detective Quinn Pomlin had been made aware by Sergeant Dave Nestor of Family Services report from a mandated reporter regarding Nicholas Rakieta and Kayla Rakieta. Someone reviewed Sergeant Nestor's initial report. I reviewed further information in relation to this investigation. After reviewing that information, I applied for a search warrant at the Rakieta residence, as well as for a search of Nick in his own person. For further information in relation to follow-up investigation and information, please refer to the search warrant, which we have now seen. It was arranged that on 5/23/24, deputies would meet in a predetermined location and eventually travel to the residence to execute the search warrant. We traveled to the area, and while almost to the residence, we observed a black-colored Lincoln with Nicholas in the driver's seat traveling southbound on 51st Street as we were traveling northbound. Sergeant Nestor was advised to stop him and detain him as he was part of the search warrant, and his person was to be searched, which is perfectly legal. They have a search warrant for him. We can detain him and search him, so that's fine. And his person was to be searched, which happened. The rest of the aforementioned officers then continued traveling to the residence to execute the search warrant and arrived at approximately 9:13 in the morning.
So that deputy. Well, I'm sorry. That's a new fact. I didn't know that. So Nick passes them going to the house, and some of the cops turn around, stop Nick, and they're like, "We got to," and then they go back to the house with Nick, because before it made it seem like they were at the house and then Nick kind of just showed up. But now that doesn't seem like that happened. Nick was going.
Which, by the way, they don't get into it because an incomplete statement down the bottom of this, that is what's happening down here, is that this is from the person who stopped Nick Rakieta while they were going to serve the search warrant. And basically says that, they identified Nick. Let's see. They asked him for the door code, so they didn't have to breach the door. This is where Nick refused to give them the code. Specifically, Nick said he was not giving me shit. As I hadn't seen the search warrant. I advised the certain detective that they did not get the door code. He checked him and basically lists off kind of what he's wearing, what they found on him. But here's the crazy thing. His daughter was in the car with him. So they went back to the residence, and he assisted the scene by standing near Nick and Kayla, April, and the Rakieta's 4 kids. This is the part that really kind of gets into it later on. But while assisting in keeping the 4 children occupied outside of the residence, one of the kids asked about getting clothes, wanted new clothes, and she made reference to the fact that she had been wearing these clothes for more than that day. So this is a direct statement from one of the kids. But specifically, the officer that arrested Nick and brought him back so that they could serve the warrant and have him on scene for it. One of Nick's kids turns to the cop and says, can I get new clothes? And then I asked about transporting Kayla to the Candy, Ohio jail. I advised her that she had been placed under arrest and I placed restraints on her. Checked for tightness, double locked, adjusted. I mean, it really kind of is the end right here, but this is just something I don't believe they go over, but we'll get back to where they are, which is, was arranged on there.
Going somewhere, they essentially did a traffic stop and brought Nick back to the house where they did the search.
Very well. Okay, when we arrived on scene, we started knocking on the door to the south side of the residence and were able to gain a response from a young female juvenile from within the residence who advised her that her dad advised her not to open the door for strangers. Smart move.
Smart move, yeah, very smart.
We then knocked on the door for several minutes, indicating we were law enforcement and trying to speak with the juvenile to come open the door for us. We know there was a keypad on the door and attempted to make radio contact with either the chief deputy or Sergeant Nestor, when I overheard radio communication from Sergeant Nestor advising that Nicholas was not going to give us the code to open the door. This was after several minutes, an appropriate time for an adult to make it the door, after which Detective Nick Adoroff, utilizing RAM, opened the door, causing minimal damage to the door.
Now,
I question what they mean by minimal.
but I do want to say this. Some of the apologists out there are claiming that the police just came and rammed down the door. Obviously, that didn't happen, right? That didn't happen, and they're leaving out a lot of details, a lot of context to it. The police went. They knocked on the door. They asked to be let in. The child, which did the smart thing, said, "No, I'm not letting you in. I don't know who you are." And let's not forget, there were two other adults in there. They probably said, "Keep the door closed too." Nick comes. Mm-hmm. They say, "Hey, give us the key so we can get in. Here is the search warrant," right? They gave Nick a copy of the search warrant. Here's the search warrant, blah, blah, blah. He still says no. He wasn't given the code. So they have a lawful...
Which we will say that Nick wasn't... from the sounds of it, if you look, and again, I'm going to scroll down. If you look through all of this here, let's see. Blah, blah, blah. At that time, Chief Deputy Blank was with me. Nicholas was advised that the warrant was signed by a judge. His response was, "That doesn't mean shit," and wanted the probable cause for the warrant. While conversing about this topic, Detective Blank was asking for the door code as they did not want to breach the door to the residence. Nick advised them that he wasn't giving them shit and hadn't seen the warrant. That is a key thing to say here. Not Team Nick. But he did not see the warrant technically at this point. He just said, "I'm not giving you shit. I haven't seen anything." He was then brought back to the residence, and that's probably when he saw the warrant. But at that time, they had already breached the residence and gone inside because they had been trying to get inside, and the kid wouldn't let him inside. Good for them, whatever. But yeah, so some of what they're saying here technically is false, but it makes sense when you get the
search warrant signed by a judge. They've given it to Nick, who's a lawyer who knows they're going to be able to get inside there. And then up until that point, that's when they break in to go into the house. So the claims that they just went in, full barrels just to break in is not.
This is true. It's very true. They did not just break in. They did give him opportunity to open a door, but at the same point, Nick, not seeing the warrant at that time, did not want to give them permission. So, they're saying, yeah, we got a warrant, but if he's not seeing it, I can't totally blame Nick for denying them access.
It's a great way to spin it, but it's not actually what happened. Does that make sense? Haven't you heard that? Oh, they just broke. There's no reason to break down Nick's door, but it's like, yeah, if you got a search warrant and the guy's not letting you in, then unfortunately Nick made the choice to have them break down his door.
If anything, they waited way longer than they had to when drugs are involved. With a drug warrant, you knock once, and then you like break down the door pretty fast. So it seems like they gave more than ample opportunity for this kind of warrant. So
Yeah.
okay.
A. McDonald became a member. Thank you.
Which leads to a very interesting idea. So you have a kid at the door that's not opening the door and talking to him through the door or whatever, or through maybe even like who knows, whatever. You got a kid there. You've got Nick arrested on the side of the road being brought to the scene, and then we know that April and Kayla are in the house. Okay, who's to say there wasn't a substantially larger amount of cocaine in that house that has now made its way into the Candio High municipal water system? I'm just putting that out there.
So much, and I got when I worked.
Typical is you have a lot of pieces of evidence that by themselves don't prove the case, but it's the combination of evidence that proves the case. It's the bricks in the walls, as Nate said earlier. So yes, it would the statement alone be enough? Would it be enough? I don't think there's really any one thing in here that would be enough standing by itself. There's no one thing here that I'd say, oh yeah, that's enough. But it's like the accumulation of things that build on each other and reinforce each other and buttress each other to reach to a.
See, and this is not a case like where like they had who knows, like confidential informant or something say, yeah, no, I sold Nick half a kilo, and they're like, well, we know he got half a kilo, like that's substantiated evidence for whatever reason. Or they don't have evidence like that. They got a lot of small bricks in the wall, is just what they're reiterating.
Conclusion, where again you're only trying to reach this like 1 out of 10 threshold. You're only trying to get to probable cause. The standard is low, so the evidence you need is not very much. It's a very forgiving standard for better or worse. Jay Wolfenstein gave $2. Say, psst, Kurt, don't tell Nate. Wink. I might have told you. The downstairs.
Yep, they're reading more.
All right, returning to the story. While making entrance to the Revens, I observed as Sergeant Swanson was standing in the kitchen and was making commands for someone to walk towards him. I was holding onto the stairway towards the downstairs when I observed two females came from the hallway on the northern part of the residence towards Sergeant Swanson. They were detained and brought outside. There were two children on the upstairs floor. We were advised there was one child downstairs by Kayla. The other female who was obtained was April. They were moved outside, and eventually, while making loud commands into the basement from the top of the stairs, I observed a juvenile male walk out. I advised him to walk to the top of the stairs, where he complied and went out and stood with his mother. I continued searching the residence, and we located an additional juvenile female in a basement bedroom, who apparently was sleeping. I advised her to walk out with me to her mom, which she agreed to do. She held my hand as we went outside. 4 children were placed outside with their mother, Kayla, as well as April. The children were located in the residence were, I was advised by Sergeant Nestor and the chief deputy that they were going to have Nicholas travel back to the residence as we execute the search warrant. We continued clearing the residence and were able to have the residence secured. The residence was extremely cluttered. There were clothes everywhere, dirty dishes, dust, and an overall dirty home. And the pictures, I'm sure, will be very revealing when they come out.
Yeah.
I overheard Nicholas Rakieta arguing with the chief deputy in front of the house, demanding that he receive a copy of the search warrant, which at that time I handed him a copy of the search warrant. I saw him look at and eventually throw it on the ground. The whole search warrant, too. You're not part of the system.
Yeah. But and just for facts, Nick did the right thing. The police come and say they have a search warrant. But when they enter, they have to give you a copy of the search warrant. You should request it. Let me see the search warrant.
Which again, that's why he denied them entry initially. He didn't have a copy. He didn't have a copy until he was on scene and given a copy after they had secured the residence and everything else. So technically, they hadn't started searching the residence for cocaine or anything, or any of the drugs or any of that stuff at this point. They had just taken the people that were inside, brought them outside, made sure there's nobody else inside. They gave Nick the search warrant. Nick looked at the search warrant, said, fuck you, threw it on the ground, whatever the fuck he said. Nobody cares. It's his house. It's not like it's littering or some shit. I feel a Family Guy parody coming on. Oh, that'd be great.
But if you see a valid search warrant, then there's really nothing you can do.
Yeah.
Okay, the house was very large, almost 5,000 square feet. That's a lot of house. We start searching in the master bedroom where almost immediately Detective Sergeant Barnes located a snort tube and a black vial on top of 2 credit cards. Those items are listed above. The snort tube tested positive for cocaine. Inside the black tube was a noticeable amount of white powdery substance, which also field tested for cocaine. As I mentioned before, by the way, these field tests are kind of garbage.
Yeah,
They suck. They suck, but it is enough for probable cause. So, we can wait for the lab to confirm it. But
Oh, shit. I clicked out again. I keep clicking accidentally on the document, so I apologize. I'm not truly this retarded, but you know what? Today I am. Arguing. Okay, there we are.
I'm not super duper optimistic given other indicia.
And
the same time, you go ahead.
Yeah. No. I do want to make that point because again, this goes to the standard again. This is not beyond reasonable doubt. This is just that lower standard. More like.
But what they're going to do is they're probably going to take the substances that they found in the house, including there was supposedly a unknown substance that when they tested it, it didn't mark for any known field tests, but that doesn't mean anything. It could be a drug. It could have been heavily cut. Who knows? It could have been brown sugar. But there was a brown substance, a brown powder that was found that they were not able to directly tie to any type of drug. So that's why it's not technically listed in the evidence. And the stuff they are able to list as cocaine on the evidence, it's just that it was field tested. Now they're going to send it to a facility where we'll do like a spectrograph on it and everything else. And they'll even be able to tell you like, okay, this is say 56% cocaine with 44% meth mixed in, or methamphetamines mixed in, or it's even maybe cut more, maybe it's 60% cocaine, 20% fentanyl, and 10% ketamine, and 10% methamphetamine, or whatever.
Likely than not. So, is it, if we can field test it, there's a test for coke? Yes, because later on, and it's happened many times, they'll test it and be like, oh, that wasn't that, it was something else. And then Nick doesn't have a problem.
Or it could even be worse because instead of cocaine, it's insert other drug, which is even more problematic. All kinds of unfortunate possibilities. Around that time, I went outside and spoke with Nick Rakieta. I requested him to speak with me. I advised him it was a Miranda warning. He agreed to speak with me and waive his right to counsel. Don't ever do this.
Yeah, that's a bad move.
Don't. The Pop Brothers tell you it's shut the fuck up Friday, which can be every day of the week. Don't talk to the police.
Yeah.
He advised me that he may not be able to answer certain questions. He shouldn't answer any questions. The conversation was recorded on my body camera. I'm sure that will be illuminating. During the conversation with Nicholas, he advised that he sleeps in the master bedroom with his wife, Kayla, and that April was just visiting there on this date. This is a general overview of our conversation. See body cam video for details. I would love to see body cam video for details. I look forward to it. At this time.
Okay, I didn't realize we were going to move very quickly onto this, but this is something that I know Kurt and Sean have talked about substantially. I don't know if Nate, I'm sure Nate has, but basically they can use any of the statements that Nick gave here after waiving his Miranda rights to impeach him. So if they find out, say from April, when they arrested her and they interviewed her at the jail, if she interviewed and didn't have an attorney present, and she says, oh no, I'm staying in the master bedroom, that, that's an impeaching statement. It takes away, it's chipping away at that credibility of Nick. It's chipping away at that credibility of Kayla. And so if there's any conflicting statements, they're going to use that to further chip away at their character. And now we are right here. Boom.
Time, it was determined that Nicholas Rakieta, Kayla Rakieta, and April Imholt would all be placed under arrest and transported to the Cuyahoga County Jail by a marked deputy as well as a state trooper. While placing Nicholas in the squad car, I observed several injuries to his arm and photographed them, which is always a good move by the police because you want to document any injuries, if you can, that pre-exists because you don't want to run into any possible abuse claim.
But
it's always wise.
I do want to mention here, earlier when they talked about the snorting tube on top of the 2 credit cards. When we saw the inventory, those 2 credit cards seem to be April's credit cards. So now if you're going to a house, you find all these drugs, if she's saying she's a guest, that's one thing. But then finding her credit cards wrapped up with the narcotics, that's probable cause to arrest her for that, because hey, this seems like you're more involved with this. And then later, finding out that they didn't have enough evidence, they let her go. But the probable cause for her arrest seems to be that her credit cards were under this place that drugs were found.
Next to the drugs that were found, that's something.
That gives you probable cause to arrest. And generally also too, if you're going to a place with drugs and most of the adults who are there would probably get arrested for drugs. It's like finding drugs in a car, right? They stop a car, they find drugs, and nobody says it's their drugs. Then they kind of arrest everybody because everybody's in the car with drugs. So
Alicia Sweep with conduct.
Okay, and they did not touch on something else here, which is they appear to be sores common with controlled substance users. That's the stuff that they photographed on Nick Rakieta. Now, if you remember when we go back to the top, so looking at roughly where I'm at, we go back to the top and then go back to these anonymous statements. Possible neglect, family, lethargic. Where is the track mark statement? House in disarray. Hungry, not fed, older boys, blah, blah. Misbehavior. This right here. Anonymous individuals have advised that they have seen what was being described as injection or track marks on Nick's arms. Now, we go back down here. While placing Nick in the state trooper squad car, I observed several injuries to his arms and photographed them. They appeared to be sores, common with controlled substance users. And you're probably like wondering maybe like what that is. Like, okay, if you've seen like any mugshots of people who have been on prolonged like methamphetamine exposure, they have like pics at their face and stuff like that. Specifically, like I can remember like with withdrawals on like on opioids, and when I've had withdrawals on when I was using this kind of stuff when I was super young, like you kind of get this buggy feeling under your skin. It's like subdermal, and it like causes you to like itch your skin and stuff. And I mean, if you're doing it perpetually enough and the quantities that they're doing, I'm sure it's going to be like a constant feeling to where like you may scratch yourself and open up your skin to where you might bleed a little, and now you've got like scratch marks and stuff on your arms, or you picked at your skin and stuff to where you've got these sores. So that's what they're inferring here. So that anonymous statement has now been corroborated by photographic evidence from the police. So that's now gone from a hearsay statement to a fact. And that even if they don't have that anonymous person, they're not able to identify him, they have for a fact photographed evidence of, hey, look at the marks on his arms and everything. He's been habitually using drugs.
Candy-Ojai County Family Services was contacted and eventually came to the scene to assist with placing the children with their grandparents, the mother's family, as I understand. During this time, Detective Oakleaf advised me that she spoke with Kayla regarding giving a statement, which time Kayla advised she wanted to have an attorney. Kayla knows the mantra. Kayla is a fan of the Pop Brothers at Law. Kayla knows to shut the fuck up. And I applaud her for it. You should always invoke your right to remain silent every time, like it's going out of style.
The irony of the the wife and the mistress knowing to ask for an attorney here, which is kind of funny because they're saying that they wanted to speak with an attorney, right? And I guess you don't have to dictate your attorney at that time, but it's kind of funny that then later on we see in the arraignment that Nick, under whatever presumption, because I'm assuming he has not had contact with Kayla or April, would then suppose that he's going to be counsel for them. So it's kind of, that's where we get the full circle of interesting.
Joe's in the chat. I'll send Joe a link so he can jump in.
reading her Miranda warrant, she also understood he'd like to have an attorney too, which is also great.
Yes.
Deputies continued to search the residence, and the above listed physical evidence was located and taken into custody of the Candia, Ohio Sheriff's Office. Arrangements were made that the grandparents were going to secure the residence. Were able to close the door and document the damage to the door. All officers arrived at the scene a little bit after 11. I traveled back to the Candia, Ohio Law Enforcement Center, where the above listed evidence was processed and placed into our evidence system, which might have been something nice that perhaps the people of Karen Reed's trial might have thought to do. Maybe we should place evidence in our evidence system too and have a log of it. That might be a nice thing to do. But these officers actually knew to do that, so they're better officers. I went to Candia, Ohio County Jail and requested Nicholas to speak with me. Once again, not understanding the assignment over here, Nick says, sure. I brought him to an interview room with the Candia, Ohio Law Enforcement Center. He was again Ren Miranda. He agreed to speak with me and waived right as counsel. Don't do this. During his conversation, he refused to answer any questions regarding cocaine use or any controlled substance use. He advised me he resides within the residence and stays in the master bedroom with his wife where he sleeps. He indicates that April is just a friend and was visiting and does not live in the residence. Now, by the way, the problem here, of course.
Okay, I have to use the restroom really badly. So, here, you guys are just going to get the Be Right Back screen and mute. Oh my god, you guys have no idea how bad I had to be. I'm so sorry. How much you want to bet Nick is going to twist that he talked to the police and his wife not? Oh, that'd be interesting. So Gigi said, how much do you want to bet Nick is going to twist the fact that he talked to the police and his wife did not into him falling on the sword for her? That's an interesting statement. All right, I'm going to try and get back to this. Ba-da-ba. And we'll keep going.
Of course, is at an eventual trial. If it somehow becomes material, which it very well might, these statements might potentially not fully accurately reflect Nick's relationship with April. So he's like, oh, she's just a friend. She's just visiting. And if it should come up in trial that that is perhaps not exactly the correct statement, that obviously impugns his character. And anytime your character is being hurt when you're the defendant, it's not a great look. So even something as innocent as, oh, April is just my friend, if the jury thinks that you're lying, it's not a great look. So this would be why don't talk to the police, because you might say something that might incriminate you, that might hurt you at your trial. And you don't know necessarily what that is at the time you're saying it. Keep your mouth shut.
And I also want to mention that remember there was this big fight that commit her at all. He can.
Oh. They're just saying that he will not be able to technically represent her. I'm just gonna try and see. Because we read a few donations here. Okay, so there's gonna be a third voice you're gonna see on screen now, which is this guy. This guy is oh god, what the fuck is his name? Blanking on his name completely. Holy shit. See if we can get his name really quick. Boom. Boom, 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 boom. We'll just keep going forward.
Sunday, if anybody who's not saying that this warrant violates the Fourth Amendment, it's going to be called out on Viva and Barnes this Sunday. So,
is that what's happening?
That's allegedly what's happening. Well, Barnes said it. Barnes is like, he's going to look at anybody.
Good Logic. You could see his name in the background. So this Good Logic guy, Good Logic, whatever, fucking stupid name if you ask me, is kind of a nose guard guy that you'll find out in the Viva and Barnes that they're talking about is Viva Frey, and Barnes is the two biggest lawyers that are going pro Nick, the nose guard lawyers. And actually, if we go back to my thing right here, this is Barnes. I know it's kind of hard to see, but he's like this constitutional law and a couple other things. Like he thinks he's a big shot, and he's really not. The only reason he thinks he's a big shot is because he is in California, I believe, is his main law office, and I think he's got one in I want to say Ohio or something. And he works with this other person, Viva Frey. Viva Frey is another lawyer, from what I understand. And they're both basically saying that, look, the kids are at fault, that, basically, Nick's innocent. He's been framed by the government, is the statement that they're going to go with. I don't really want to cut into too much here, but there is some good dialogue that comes out from this, and since we're so close to the end, I'm just going to read the last little two quick paragraphs. But I would definitely go check them out. This stream and the other stream is also going to be in the playlist. But so then we go on to he indicated that April Imalte is just a friend and was visiting and does not live at the residence. This could also be a reason, from my understanding from watching other stuff, as to why April was released rather quickly. Although, again, with the credit cards and everything else, so Belinda, he's backing him, I think, because his buddy Barnes is backing him. I don't know how much Viva's into it, but from what I saw with watching Viva Frey, because I did watch a couple of his streams on this, he's pretty gung ho as far as Nick's innocent, and I don't know if that's just because he's got Barnes in his ear or what. But let's see. He explained that he is extremely stressed out in regards to his 5 kids and their extracurricular activities. See audio recording for further details. I was advised after this interview that blank had contact with Kayla Rakieta, requesting if their live-in nanny would be able to assist with anything at the residence. Blank was advised by Kayla that technically Imalte was their live-in nanny. So now that you got a conflicting thing right here. Indicated April is just a friend visiting. Technically, April is the live-in nanny. That's a conflicting statement. There's stuff that's going to be used to chip away. And then we go on to say, I provided the Rakietas a copy of the law enforcement hold order for each of their children and placed it with their property in the jail. Basically, the hold order just said that the kids are going to stay with the grandparents. I didn't remember which grandparent it was, but I think it's listed even in here. But yeah, and then this list that there is additional stuff that goes with this. There's an audio recording, body cam video, and digital photographs. We've already read through this whole thing. They do not really get into this. But yeah, Good Logic goes really hard at arguing some of the counterpoints with Kurt and with Nate in that stream. He does it in a kind, lawyerly way.